Hello, this is Kamau Austin, publisher of Scoop Publications and your host for the Scoop on Black News. Today I'm here and we'll be talking about part 2 of our series on the role of the Black church and how it relates to the 2 viruses that are that are presently afflicting the world, that of course COVID-19 and racism. Racism has been around for over 400 years and COVID-19 for about 4 months, but they're both having a very devastating impact on the Black community. So I've gotten together a group of ministers who are doing work in the community, and I wanted to share the kinds of things, the dynamic things they're doing to help our community in these times. Now, the first person we're going to have is Reverend Peter Simms, and he was born in Kingston, Jamaica, raised in Brooklyn, a graduate of New York City Community College, and has an associate degree in mechanical engineering. He later went to Harvard Divinity School, got his master's in divinity, and also worked for about 20 years in the New York City public school system, worked in Southeast Queens, and was I think, an assistant principal for 20 years.
Right.
Right. And also, we have with us Donna James. She was ordained in 2003 at Bethel Gospel Tabernacle, and she shortly left to serve on the continent of Africa, South Africa, for a number of years. And she returned to the United States. She's now an associate pastor at, I think it's at the Bar Bethlehem Cathedral. And she focuses a lot on health and fitness. And I believe that health is a form of wealth. And she talked about in our last session how, it's important for us to take care of the temples that God has entrusted us with. And I wanted to start with her today. And, it's one thing to talk about your ideas on ministry, but Reverend James, today I wanted you to just give us a practical idea of some of the things that you're doing in ministry to help people in our community become more healthy, and for us to take care of our temples.
Thank you, Kwame. What I've been doing recently, back for the past 4 months since I've been furloughed, I was working at the Jamaica YMCA and Long Island City YMCA, and then also working for the Parks Department in Shape Up New York City. But I have been doing Facebook Live 5 days a week, and I do classes. It was not something that I looked to do, that I wanted to do. The Lord gave me this ministry. His Temple Fitness ministry is what I've been doing. He gave me this a few years ago. And, my thing was to bring it to the church, to get the church involved, because a lot of what the church does in their time of fellowship is eat. And a lot of the food that they're eating wasn't really healthy. Yeah. And when God gives us that call to go onto the field, a lot of times we're not physically able, once we get there, to actually perform the work, because we're dealing with so many obstacles in our health. So I wanted to come to do that. I did it for a while, in my church and a few other churches, but, I just was in the gym and just doing my thing. So what I'm doing now, since the pandemic came, a lot of the people that I was training in the gyms, they asked me, well, Donna, can you come on? I wasn't looking to do that. As outspoken as I am, I'm kind of a behind the scenes person, but God told me to go and do it, to go on Facebook and to do it. I also do not charge for what I do. And I know a lot of my coworkers, a lot of traders that I know, and I understand that because that's how we hustle. That's the bread and butter. But God told me, go and do it. I'm going to take care of you. And he has. Since I've been out of work, he has truly taken care of me. So I don't ask anybody for anything. Whoever will, come on. So I do these classes. I have people from all over the United States. I have people from the Carolinas, both North and South. I have Pennsylvania, Ohio, Georgia. I even have people from 5 countries from the continent. I have Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, and also what I call my home, South Africa, that come on and do the classes. So I give them a class, but I don't just give the exercise class. Mm-hmm. I also now give them some health tips, because we found out when this pandemic hit us that especially people of color, because we had so many things happening, high blood pressure and sugar diabetes and so many things, we really were compromised and it hit us the hardest. So I was giving people a number one things to do to build your immune system, trying to give them tips on how to change how we eat. A lot of times in our communities, we eat a lot of fried foods. We don't know about eating fresh produce and eating raw foods, eating the different colors and things to build that immune system. So those were the tips that I was giving people. People were complaining about, being in the shutdown, gaining weight. I gave them tips on how to lose weight, things to do even while you're shut in. I say was because I'm not at the Y now, but I ran a 12-week weight loss program with the YMCA. I was the health coach, so I would give them the tips on things to do that. So I do the exercise program. I do a total body 3 days a week, and then there's 2 days a week I do a lower impact. Though the students laugh at me and they tell me my low impact isn't low impact, I tell them it's DJ style. So everybody comes on, and I can get sometimes up to a couple of hundred people that come on throughout the day, because with the live you can come on at your convenience. So people are coming on, they're sharing the lives. Also, I live in Rochdale. Rochdale has been sharing it on Rochdale's page. But it's to help people to get through this time, and not just so much physically, but mentally. My bishop says that most people now, we all on some level are dealing with PTSD. We have never dealt with what we're dealing with now. And what I'm trying to do is, as we exercise and those endorphins are released, it kind of balances out. It lifts your spirit. It gets you prepared for the day. So it's not just a physical thing. It's not just to lose weight, but it's also giving you tips on how to deal. It's giving you tips on how to change your eating. And it's also helping you mentally. And before I close out any session that I do, and it's not just Christians that I deal with a lot of people I know overseas that are Muslims. I don't care who comes on. This is for whoever will. But before I end out of class, I always pray. I pray, because I can't do this. We can't do this without the help of the Lord. Excuse me. We found out that through this time, I don't care the greatest scientists, they have no idea what's going on. So we're taking this day by day. But what my ministry, what I'm doing is trying to help the people to get through this time. Like I say, it's day by day, dealing with the pandemic that's hitting us medically, but also when it comes to this racial unrest that we're dealing with. And this is something that has been going on forever, and I just don't have Black people that I deal with, not just people of color, come on my lives. Right. I have people from all walks, but we talk about it. I don't stay on that subject because that's not the forum that's set up, but I do speak of it. I do have to bring it up, and we do ask the Lord to heal this land, to heal it on all the levels that we need healing in. But that's a ministry that God has given me. And now I'm seeing what he gave me a few years ago, how it's being used now, where there is no gyms. You can't go anyplace. You're locked down, but they can still get their work on. They can still, all parts of the body can be touched.
Right.
All parts. Your spiritual is touched, your physical is touched, but also working on the mental, learning how to take care of these temples. You know, these temples were loaned to us, but we have a responsibility to do something about it. And my passion, my call is to help people, to give them the tools to be able to work it out and to do it in their own lives and the lives of their families. Like I tell them, I can only give you the tools. What you do with it is up to you, but I continue to remind them of what they need to do with these bodies, continue to remind them that the warm weather is coming. Don't get lax in what you're doing. You have to keep this thing going. So that's what I'm doing personally during this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I notice a lot of people, because of all the tension, a lot of people are taking various types of drugs. But like you said, if they could exercise and get the endorphins kicking in, that could sort of counterbalance that. I want to go to Pastor Simms next. Can you share with us some of the things that you're doing in ministry, some of the progressive things that you're doing in ministry to help our community?
I want to commend my sister, Donna James, Reverend James, for the work she's doing, because so essential that we deal with that ontological question of how we take care of the self, and how we're being in state of oppression and disease and so forth. So thank you for that work, and so seminal to the church and to the globe. So thank you for sharing that with us. I tend to focus a lot on the structural inequities and injustices that we deal with, and more of the existential problems that we have. However, it's not a negation of what Reverend James just talked about, because it pretty much is holistic. But I am a pragmatic theologian, and I understand that theory can be a little oppressive in and of itself, but it must be also be a part of our analysis of the problems that we have. So, however, though I went to an Ivy League school, I've been struggling on the ground for years, because there are voices from below that many times doesn't get heard. And you know our history with engaging in struggle on the ground since Reverend Daughtry's church, and when I was in Brooklyn with many of the community leaders there. And so as I went to school, came back home, I intentionally went into New York City public school because I thought there I could make an impact. I went into the South Jamaica community, 40 projects, and had students of the like of 50 Cent. And there we struggled with some of the issues that facing our children in education. And we were able to be a part of trying to move children in terms of reading and academics and so forth. Having completed that and went to another school, PS 95, we decided at the end of our retirement to move to Georgia, which I thought was a God move. And I work now intentionally in urban contexts, inner cities, trying to, we launched a church with no organizational backing. We launched a church with our will, the power of God, the direction of the Holy Spirit, and we've been in that community understanding the nature of capitalism and lack of resources for urban communities, we envisioned a holistic project that would include economic development, entrepreneurship, and education. So we were working with students in terms of trying to get them ready academically, because that's my orientation background. We run coding program. I partnered with some engineers and they gave some pro bono time, and we ran Saturday academies, took what I did in public school, and we empowered them, motivated them, and at the same time dealt with some of the skills that they need to develop to perform in public school. In addition to that, we realized that there was a problem with mass incarceration and our folks coming out, male and female, that some with felonies and were not able to get a job. So we embraced a program called Jobs for Life, where we taught soft skills as well as organize it so that we could get a business liaison and mentors that would walk with these, we call returning citizens. And we would have a business liaison that would advocate with the business community to give these men and women a second chance. Our first and second program, our first program, we had 100% completion, and 70% of the students were placed, and I think a great percentage of them are still working. So I believe that's a great success. The other piece is that we dealt with adult literacy, and we were trying, without any funding, without any organizational backing, we were just working on the ground. And so what we did was we started what is called we had a nonprofit, Greater Faith Community Development Corporation. We inspired a church to come behind that and so into that, and we developed that. We got 501c3 behind that with a vision of trying to tap into some governmental funding and some local organization that would help to fund us. We also established, knowing we had a nonprofit, we established what is called Greater Faith Business Enterprise. Greater Faith in the Business Enterprise is an understanding that there is a 502c designation to the IRS that allows churches, even though they're nonprofit, to be able to make profit. So under that rubric, we were able to start inspiring entrepreneurship thinking. So we thought if we could get some of these returning citizens coming home, we could get funding to establish equipment. We could then develop our own business and train our own entrepreneurs to move into those businesses. So we thought if we could get funding to service the nonprofit, we could develop people to become business owners themselves and have our own for-profit. So then we did that. We established that. Then we established what is called, so we established both of those things. We were working with that. But because of that, because we did not have funding, we had the passion, we had the structure, we were organized on the level. We discerned and decided to try to reach out, because a lot of the local Black churches were not really thinking on that level. Most of them were like trying to get soul saved. I have no problem with that. Trying to go to heaven, but they just thought that that's where to go. And I said, no, it's not either or, it's both and. So, but we never really got a lot of support from our colleagues. So we discerned as a team. We walk with a white evangelical organization who proposed that they wanted to partner with, urban ministry and diversity and so forth. We walk with them since 2014. I'm trying to make it fast. And we are, but subsequent of that time, we realized that most of the conversation was just trying to get people to the table. So getting people to the table, it just serves as optics. So we got some Black people at the table, but the resources didn't come down to where the people really had the need. And so I've been in tension with them, struggling with that at this time. So we really never got the kind of help that we needed for our community, but we served as the optics that said, oh, see, we are diverse. We have Black people, we have Asian, we have Hispanic, but it wasn't really anything that was impacting the structural realities of what we're facing. So that's pretty much where we are now. We're still struggling. We're still not struggling. We're still praying. We're still hoping. We're still asking for those help that we can get, because it's difficult to sustain these vital programs in a capitalist culture without some kind of support. So it's difficult to sustain these programs because we'll get volunteers for 6 months, and then, they said, well, we can't volunteer anymore. And so we are in an underserved community. It's a Title I community where the majority of students are freelance. It's a transient community, so that by the time we see people come, then they have to go. So that's where we are. That's what we're doing. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Dr. Jenkins, what we're doing, last week we talked a lot about the importance of the Black church, especially given the backdrop of the dual viruses or the viruses of, racism and COVID-19. So what I did was I asked, Reverend James and also Pastor Simms, what were some of the things they're doing in ministry, to illustrate their passion and their feelings on the role of the Black church. What are some of the things you're doing in ministry now?
Well, thank you again for hosting this forum and for forgive me for my tardiness. I'm happy to have come in on the end of Reverend James's self-care piece, because that's where I actually start. I missed our tea time because I was out taking care of self. I was walking in the community and honestly got beyond myself in regards to time. But what I do, you see me all the time on Facebook. I'm a fierce social justice activist. But I started self-care because on Tuesday, it got to a boiling point for me, because locally here, over the weekend, there was a lot of violence. I think about over 100 people were shot and several killed. But there was one case that stood out for me. A 17-year-old who had just graduated high school last week, on his way to college in the fall, and he was murdered attending a barbecue where there were some words shared. And so I happened to know his uncle, who has been a father figure for him, and it just really got to me. I am not one of those people who jump on the Black on Black violence bandwagon, but I do know that we have this issue within our community. It's been exacerbated by the 15 weeks of being at home, and now the weather's nice and people are interacting a little bit more, and there's been no outlet for all of this energy that's been pent up. And so I am currently, as we speak, trying to put together a viable program for some of the younger people in our community. What we do year round is we offer educational services similar to what Dr. Simms was just saying about, but we focus on after school and summer camp. Both are a STEAM environment where we are intent on not just doing homework help, but also expanding their mind and their genius, tapping into their genius from a scientific perspective, and strengthening their skills in the academic areas that mean the most in this country, English and math. right now, I've been called by several parents wondering what are we doing come Monday. It's a moving target. There are so many pieces that are fragmented in terms of trying to provide care. The primary concern for the parents and for myself is the safety of their children and for all of us, right? But also the children have been contained in home trying to complete a school year that just ended here on Friday. And they have all of this pent up energy because they have not been around their friends, and parents are not necessarily equipped to deal with their children on a full-time basis. So there are so many things. I am trying to do try to put together a bifurcated program where we can be on site a couple of days and we can do virtual. These are the guidelines that we're trying to follow state guidelines and what makes sense for our community. We live in the Northeast Bronx, huge community. The people are not necessarily all Title I, but there's a mixture, referring back to what Dr. Simms said. And so we try to reach all. We try to reach those on the higher income strata to get them engaged in helping us to lift the others up. And so we do workforce development. We are trying to now figure out how we can support nail technicians when they come back, when that service is opened back in New York, by using our multi-use space to offer training opportunities if those people have gone through the state requirements. So we're trying to tap into some of those resources that have normally been indicative of our community, hair and nails, and trying to also figure out how we can support Black businesses who are now trying to offer some of the services that some of our Asian brothers and sisters have offered, and we have not always been treated well. I'm really trying to be nice with my language, but we know
diplomatic.
yes. And that's a part of the self-care piece. That's a part of the self-care piece, because I'm always at 100, it seems, and so I'm trying to moderate my own tone in terms of speaking even, but the message is still clear. We need to bring some of those dollars that have not been appreciated by the communities we have often given them to back into our community. So if there are those who are in New York area and are trying to build a client list, we're offering 3 to 5 spots in the fall or whenever we go into phase 3 or 4 in New York City for them to practice their new art. These are some ways that I believe justice can be served economically by providing an avenue. And even if we can tap into the market of the numerous hair products that we purchase, we'll do that as well. Trying to bring some of those dollars and circulate them back into our community.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot to sort of unpack there. In our community, we have racism on one part. We have to deal with that, and then we have certain elements in our community that we have to deal with, as far as crime and other things too. And it's just, I guess it's just a very difficult kind of ministry when you think about it, because we have these two forces coming at us both ways, and we have to address them. We have to address things on, how brothers are treating our sisters, and crime and that kind of stuff. Not that we want to, like you said, we don't want to get on that bandwagon where, when every time we talk about racism, they bring up crime to redirect, from their racism. And they never want to address the fact that in the past, drugs was actually sold in our community to fund the Contra War, right? And how many of our young people who are selling drugs now and who are living a certain lifestyle are probably children of people whose lives are devastated from selling crack in our communities, where we had government agencies doing it, but no one never wants to talk about that. People don't want to talk about that. So I know it's, I know because of that, we have to come at this from different angles. We have to come at it like Reverend James is coming at it from self-care and health. That has to be a priority. Mental health, physical health in our community. But then we also have to look at the structural thing, like Pastor Simms and also Reverend Jenkins have a tendency to do, although they do it on a practical level. That's what I'm getting. You understand the systematic racism, and we have to address it, but you're doing it in a practical level that touches people, you know. But I'm just wondering, you know, do you think that maybe progressive Christians need an organization or network where they could work together? I know we have Baptist organizations and we have Pentecostal ones, but it seems like really some progressive churches and ministries are sort of out there by themselves. This is what I'm getting. They need more funding. They need more support. You know, Reverend James is doing things. She's doing things free. She's giving health classes all over people over the world for free. You know, and you know, my news blog, we did over. We're up to almost 3,000 profiles of Black businesses, community organizations, and you know, things like that. And I'd say maybe 90% of them we've done for free. You know, so I'm just wondering, listening to all of you, maybe we need some kind of working together, because, like I said, I looked all over YouTube and I didn't see a lot of. I saw Reverend Barber, and I see some progressive ministers out there, but I don't really see them working together, networking, and as an organization. How do you feel about that? Am I totally off base, or do you think maybe we could be working together better? Anyone could jump in.
I don't think you're off base. What it is, it's not even in, everybody's in their own little bubble, you know, their own little box. And it's about just the body of Christ as one coming together, because we're all going through the exact same thing. But if you have the bread and I have the lettuce and somebody else, and we all come together, we can have that sandwich. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it is about coming together as one, and it's about getting that mindset. What I'm bringing to the table is not better, or it doesn't take away from what you're bringing. But if we come together, it's going to be so much stronger than everybody trying to hustle and trying to do their own thing. You know, we have to learn to work as one. And we know this has been set up, even as a people of color, it has been set up for us to come away from each other and not to work together. But if we can come together, if we can actually, now with our eyes are being open, that it has been set up for us to be pitted against each other. Mm-hmm. If we can come together and work together as one, that's where the strength is. We can't do it because, you know, as Pastor was saying, you know, he's looking for funding, but you have somebody else who has the funding. You're in the South Bronx where there's the number of people, but if everybody comes together and we work as one, everybody can be touched. And that's what it is. We need, and especially at this time, looking that you can't do it. It's not just about you. Even sometimes, you know, I would come in and sometimes some of our prayer meetings, and when we're praying about just our little church, our families. No, we have to look, it's the whole global thing, you know? Even that is this whole thing, this pandemic, it wasn't about the United States. It's about the globe, everybody, because what happens here happens over there. And that's why we are in the area that we are now. Everybody else is coming down and balancing, but the United States is off the chain because we always think we don't need anybody. We can do this thing. We got it. And look at us now, where borders are starting to open, but not for us because we off the chain. We can't get it together. We can't even work wearing a mask. And the mask isn't about helping me, but it's about helping you. But our thing is all about us. If it's not going to affect me, I don't want to do it. You know what I'm saying? but we're not looking out for our fellow man. And that's where we need to come to individually and as a church, as a nation, as a community. We have to learn to work together. We're supposed to be teaching that to our children. It's about working together, learning how to share. It comes down to that base, just learning how to share and coming together. Because in numbers, there's strength in numbers.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to weigh in on it. Ironically, I agree with you, Reverend James. I do. I may have mentioned this before. I'm a New York NYPD clergy liaison, and I'm not one who toes the line. I've never seen a profession that when you walk into a meeting with them, you have to stroke them in order to begin a meeting. And I don't do that. And many of the other clergy don't like to see me coming because I leave that to them and I get down to the brass tacks. There is a problem in New York City with the NYPD in our communities. What are we going to do about it? That is my approach. And so from this, we were having a meeting a couple of weeks ago. And I found that there were probably 100 of us there, not all of us, but there were two voices of dissent, I'll say, against the NYPD and the status quo. And those voices were female. One was mine and one was a Caucasian clergy woman. And so I had mentioned to another female clergy woman that I know, we were on this meeting and only two of us, she was white and just me speaking out against all the stuff that's going on in our community. So she immediately knew who I was talking about. So we then got together on a text chat, and we pulled. There were two actually. There was myself, the white clergy, and another black female clergy, woman clergy. So we're all on this private text right now. And I said, we have a new, they switched out the chief for community affairs. That's not the problem in New York City. Community affairs is not the problem with the NYPD. It is the beat cops who the community is repeatedly butting heads with. The blue shirts, everybody welcomes them. We know them. They're the friendlies, So to make that move was problematic to me when I saw it last week. So I got on this group text with these clergy women. I said, look, this is a problem potentially because they moved a Latina female, a Latina chief to make way for a black male chief. And so I'm going around because many clergy know him. And I'm like, is this a good move? And I'm being told, yes, we need a black face there. I said, we might need a black face there, but we need someone who's not going to just be a talking head. We need someone who's going to make a difference within the community. So I said this to say, I'm trying to make it succinct, but I wanted to give you the background. So we are planning a meeting with him, just as women clergy, because I had to impress upon the inspector that women clergy have a different perspective than many of the males. So he's agreeing to set up a meeting for us. But from this texting, the women now want to organize formally. This is to your question about progressives coming together. They want to organize formally. There is funding put on the table for us to hire an organizer. And this is a cross section of women clergy. It's interfaith, which in the NYPD you have to, in New York City, it's interfaith, quite frankly. And so there is that. But I do have some concerns about it. I have some concerns about it because where we're starting with this nucleus idea of getting the perspective of women clergy on behalf of themselves and on behalf of the community across to the NYPD, it seems to be taking on a life of its own. And that's where I go back to my prayer closet, because I don't want to move forward just because funding is available. I want to stay true to the reason why we got involved in the first place. And so those are considerations that we have to have when we're talking about even coming together, unfortunately.
Yeah. Excellent, sisters. And I really respect and appreciate what you said, because as a male pastor, I don't have a lot of colleagues, because I do understand that this whole, the narrative has to change, particularly, and I use the word Black church loosely because we have taken the Western Eurocentric narrative, and we have put a black face on it, and we perpetuate the same structures of domination, sexism, and racism. You know, we perpetuate it through the narrative we preach and teach. And so when you get into a meeting, you see it. And so I believe the narrative has to change. And I believe that, as Audre Lorde said, you cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's narrative. And so that is part of the work I try to bring to the table. In terms of empowerment, I believe that we also have to think beyond just our own theology and think of that we have, as pastor, to know where our limitation is. This sister may be a psychologist, that sister may be a philosopher. When we have these conferences, it's not to go to get an envelope and be sold a book and charge all this money just to say you're more spiritual. We should have a collaborative of expertise that come to the table, and all of those expertise come together and start talking about the issues that's affecting our church. I know we believe that Jesus can do a lot of miracles, but Jesus sent them to get the pot so he can make the wine. So if we don't understand that economic development is going to, once we start focusing on economic development and we start taking our monies and putting them together, then God could really do some miracles through that. So the real empowerment is not just to go and speak in tongues and say, I'm coming out in 7 days, but we need to have a vision. And those conflicting visions are going to come together if we start respecting other voices in our community and start bracketing some of the whole power relations that we bring to the table.
Yeah, this may be a little bit of a digression from the church, but, I notice, well, I'm just going to say it. Black women, I consider Black women the glue that holds our community together. Now, that may not be the most romantic metaphor, but that's how I feel. Mm-hmm. And for instance, in an upcoming show, I'm going to have on Erica Ford and a sister named Aisha Sekou. Now, these two sisters ran anti-violence groups in Southeast Queens and Harlem. And they were able, at one point, I don't know if this is still the case, but at one point, they were able to stop violent shootings or help stop violent shootings in those neighborhoods for over a year, going on 2 years. There were no shooting deaths. Now, these are sisters that started organizations that went in. I know they had different approaches. Erica Ford actually went into gang members and taught meditation, believe it or not, things like meditation, so they could resolve conflicts between each other without killing each other.
So important.
And then Aisha, she ran. They did neighborhood patrols where they would talk to people hanging at certain parks where the drugs were being sold from because we did a story on her on one of our news blogs. And so they had different approaches. And at one point, I think Aisha Sekou was able to get some funding from the government, from the city government, to help keep that organization going, because it helped to lower crime so much. So when we talk about defund the police, it not just being a sort of a galvanizing slogan, but actually defunding police in the sense that we look at groups that have a track record.
Should be funded. Right,
and fund those groups to help lower crime. And the whole, to me, the thing where you had sisters that, they're brothers that worked with them, but I think having a perspective of a woman and maybe, not being so tied into the ego, they could organize, and get different people to work together and to cut that down. So that's gonna come in an upcoming episode. I've already spoke to them and they want to do it. So I think it's very important. And getting back to the point, I think it's very important that we don't carry over the same chauvinistic, capitalistic things into the new progressive Black church, I'll call it, that I think is going to grow now because people are seeing. We used to be in denial. You know, the church for a long time used to be in denial. I remember growing up in the church and saying a lot of things about we should be dealing with racism and other things like that, and I was pretty much marginalized in the the established churches. But now I'm even seeing, I'm seeing white evangelicals say that we're pushing white supremacy here, and they're saying that the white Jesus has had negative effects on us psychologically and other things. So if they're seeing it, a lot of our folks are beginning to see it, and I'm thinking that persons like yourselves who are doing ministries, we have to see maybe if somehow we can create crowdfunding campaigns and other things to raise the consciousness of the kinds of work that all of you are doing. It just sort of bothers me that I see, Reverend James, she's doing all this work for free. And I think, she's an inspiration. I don't know if she would be put on the spot, but can you tell us your age as far as you're doing all of this health and fitness stuff?
I'm 67.
Doing well,
67.
Great.
67.
Doing well.
Look great.
And you should see her. You should see her working.
So
Yeah.
So I just think that and after speaking to all of you, it's just reinforced in my mind that we have to do something to see how we can get more support for persons like yourselves, because I don't know if it's going to come from the mainstream churches, even though a lot of them are their consciousness are being definitely raised, not only to the police brutality, but also to the redlining and to our homes being undervalued. And I just saw something the other day on how they created all of these houses in the suburbs and sold it to white people for like $20,000, and now these houses are worth $400,000, $500,000. They're coming back into the city, but those houses have accrued so much wealth, so much valuation that they can pass it down, generationally. And they're talking about by 2053, many of us, the Black community, is saying our median income is going to be like zero. All these different things that they're doing, the prison industrial complex. We're not just talking about slavery and needing reparations, but we're talking about things that are happening now, and persons, Black ministers who are doing the work to try to counteract this. I just think many times they're out there on their own. I think we're going to have to create something so the community knows about you and others and can begin to support you in different ways, because it's very important work.
Yeah, that's why the work you're doing, is so vital, because the media and exposure is where we don't really have that access, because the media is focusing on their own ratings and so forth. Going into the communities. That's why I don't like people bashing the quote Black church, because there are people on the ground that's doing things. And just because people don't know about it doesn't mean that it's not being done. They're just seeing those other guys, that's just trying to be popular. Because I saw Ebony's having some talk now, and the majority of it is older Black men. And one or two sisters in there, and there's only one person that's young. So again, that the media is perpetuating that narrative that these are the voices of the Black church, when they're voices from below that's doing things on the ground. I mean, I didn't go into a church for a package where I could have gotten a big package, nice car with my degree, but I followed my heart and I followed what the Lord said. And I have in 8 years, the Lord has helped us to sustain that ministry without a compensation package. So we got to also remember we can't make, a lot of people can't make blanket statement about the Black church, what they're not doing. We knew about Reverend Flake and all of those churches in Brooklyn that were doing things in the community with credit unions and so forth and building entrepreneurs. So we have to be careful and understand. So the work you're doing is so vital to making known some of the work that's happening on the ground.
Right.
Yeah, I would like to add just a little end note to that. I agree. We probably have the very similar background in that we both started our, ministries without the support of the bodies that we may have been related to in our own faith walk. And we're 15 years in October. I've changed so much. I've changed so much. I believe the Lord has grown me so much, and I feel like I'm worshiping Him, and I'm also presenting Him more authentically with my own knowledge. Because while you went to Ivy League, I'm so refreshed to hear you say that was not for me, because I know it doesn't necessarily, the theories that we are taught in seminary in general do not meet the ground. Right. The rubber, the people on the street. But to your point about compensation, I totally agree that Reverend James should receive some type of, remuneration for the good work she does, and many of us on the ground level. I was on a 3-hour Zoom the other night. 3 hours. I didn't even know it was going to be 3 hours. But at the end, one of the guests of the host said, "Where's your Cash App? Where's your Cash App?" Because what we've learned in these 3 hours, we did not learn in our churches, nor did we learn in school, all the years of schooling.
Right.
So I didn't give my cash because I wasn't there for that, but she sent me money overnight. I was like, that was unexpected. She said, because several people donated, but they specifically said, make sure you get this. And so I've been toying with this idea since I graduated with my doctorate. We need a new academy, because just like what you just said, Pastor, they cart out the media, and this is a service, this is a credit to you. You are looking for voices that are unheard, not the usual ones. Erica Ford is well known for the work she does on the ground. So some of us who've been following her work will know her name. But you have us, and we don't know each other, but now we do.
Yes.
I'm looking to form a new academy so that Reverend James can come and teach us how to be well spiritually, but with a physical perspective, and where a Pastor Simms can come and talk and teach other pastors how to form a 502c, so that the church is not suffering in the months that we are all about to suffer in, the summer months, because people don't give. How do we sustain ourselves without looking for tithes and offering being that thing that we are reliant upon, when there are other avenues those are classes that I would never ask him to teach for free, because of how I believe the Bible teaches us to be with one another. If you look at the Acts 4 church, everybody gave everybody.
Right.
And so when we've been out here 15 years struggling,
and we have the model.
And you know what? It doesn't matter that he worked a full career and said that this is going to be the next phase of my life. We should support those who are doing the good work. And therefore, I would never invite him on a platform to teach what he just talked to us about, without saying to those who would come to learn from him, you have to bless him. And so I'm just trying to work out the final details around how the new academy will go, because I'm tired of looking at white theologians through the eyes and teaching it to my people, because they don't understand that. The white theologians have not walked in the shoes of Black people who walk every day. So we have to reimagine the education that we have paid for as it relates to the community that God has put us in to serve, and make it work for all of us. But listen up for the new academy. It's coming. And I so agree with you, and I'm glad you asked that question.
I'm going to say something, and I hope it inspires you. my daughter and I started these news blogs. We started working hard on them, I say about 3 years ago. My daughter's on the autism spectrum.
Mhm, mhm.
And God has really blessed us, to keep these things going. I mean, there have been days where we've put articles out and have gotten 5,000 visits, 10,000 visits, up to 80,000 visits a day. A dad and his daughter on the autism spectrum. And now we have people, when I first started about a year ago, I had to move, and I had maybe a few good clients. And today I have maybe 80 or 100 within maybe a year and a half. And I'm saying all that to say that your work, you may have pushed out there and you've been working a long time. But, I know that if you're doing what God called you to do, it's going to show fruit. And me and Pastor Simms did activism, a lot of activism years ago together, went to the same religious studies school, did some Christian ministry in the seminary. And he went on to Harvard. He was a smart one. I just sort of felt, that God was leading me in a different way. I had a lot of technology communications, and I sort of felt like my professors were sort of leading me down a path where I would be talking and commentating about history rather than making history. So I just felt I wanted to go in another way. So I'm saying that whatever communications and technology background that I can bring to bear to help ministers, you ministers, and ministers like yourselves who are doing, progressive good work on the ground. That's what I want to do. That's where I want to be. And this program, this two-part series that we're doing is just the beginning. And we're not just going to be talking and sharing ideas, which is really important. Because I remember when I was an activist that we used to do things and the media would change the story of what we did. They change it. They said we said this and we said something totally different, and they project us in a totally different light. And so in my mind, I said, we're out here, doing this work, police brutality, dealing with gangs in the community, and all these other kinds of things that we're doing. But they're changing the narrative, and they're projecting us in a totally different light of what we are. So I said, it's crazy for us to rely on somebody else to tell our story. Our story's never going to get told. And that's why I went into the media. But it really inspires me to see persons like, Reverend James and Dr. Jenkins and, Pastor Simms, your work. Believe me, I see it. And I try to in our social media promotions, talk about it. And we're going to be building more and more because, people don't, they just don't know a lot of the work, like Pastor Simms was saying. They don't know what pastors like you are doing. You can tell some of the things they say, they're just totally clueless, so I think, I just wanted to let you know that. And maybe we can wrap it up now. If people have like maybe a 3-minute last remarks, closing remarks, that 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. Pastor Simms?
Yes, just want to say I'm enriched by the conversation, and I am so reinforced, which I already knew, that there's critical work that's going on in our communities, and the women of God and men of God that are just trying to struggle with how we do this, are doing it a lot of times at great expense, but our faith keeps us going. In terms of the academy, I've been praying and trying to discern how if until we get to a place. But the good thing about going to an Ivy League school, of course, I didn't make it a badge of honor that I wielded over people, but for 15 years, I didn't even pick up my degree. But the value of that is, I think Foucault said, in order to dismantle, also deconstruct the master's theory, you must understand the master's theory. And so that was the value for me. And so, being an organic intellectual, as Cornel West said, and being informed by scriptural paradigms, I'm trying to bring that to the conversation that we have. And prayerfully, I was always turned off about these religious conferences because a lot of time they made promises and they don't really go anywhere. But I think if we could bring business professionals and just people that not some of the folks that haven't even gone to college to the table, but that just has a passion for liberation and justice. And we can just have expertise just inform us, because no matter, my area is theology, but I am not an expert in psychology. And all of these things are impacting our people because we have this historical trauma that people have to deal with. And sometimes pastors try to be the wherewithal for everybody. And you have people right in your church that are going through psychological and emotional issues that you don't have the skills to provide. And instead of being honest enough to say, I don't, I can pastor you, but I need to refer you to a counselor, therapist, and I always let my church know I have a spiritual director and I have a therapist that I talk to. So it doesn't make us sound big. So we have to be careful of realizing what space we occupy, but also try to build a platform where other voices could come together and sharpen women.
Right. Pastor Jenkins?
I appreciate you for feeling that this was important enough to pause and do. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to meet both Reverend James and Pastor Simms and learn from each of them. And hopefully we'll be able to do this again. And I thank you for offering your help, because one thing, I have this, I can enunciate well, I write well. I'm not the greatest at technological savviness and media things. And so I understand my strengths and I understand my weaknesses. Where the strengths lie, I will rely on those, but I love to come into contact with others who have equitable strengths. They just may be in a different area, and I understand that I need them. So I think if we develop our mindset around we need each other, and by unifying together, us as a people, just let's start with us. Yes. And find our strengths, each of our strengths, and build a community that is able to stand, that is able to generate income within itself that's not always going outside. I think we'll be on to something, and I believe we're awakening. It may take a little longer, and it may not be our generation, it may be our children or theirs, but at least the seed has been planted, and now we're in a position to watch it grow. And I'm happy to be on this journey with you all.
Amen.
Thank
well
you.
Well said. Mm-hmm.
Reverend James, I just wanted to say that I'm going to see if I can get my daughter to take some of your courses and look to give you something for that, because she's stuck in the house and she likes to work out. She's into self-defense classes and things like that, but she just hasn't been able to get out. So I wanted to get her into a class. I've been talking to her about it.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. Excellent. I just thank God for the opportunity that I was able to come on and glean from all that I've heard, and open up my mind even more. My prayer, even as we go through this time that we're in, this season that we're in, that we don't lose focus. And that's my fear. And a lot of times I'll post it on social media, watch out for the distractions. Yeah. Because everybody was on one bandwagon, but now we're going in different areas. We have to remain focused. And that's one of the things that I'll use, for lack of a better term, the enemy uses, or is looking for us not staying the course of what we need to do. We can't lose focus of where we are. We've come a long way, but we have so much longer to go, and we have to stay the fight. We can't stop. And that's the thing. Pushing when you don't feel like pushing, because there are those who are depending on you. Some mornings I get up, I don't feel like doing a class. I just want to lay in my bed. Mm-hmm. But because I know people are waiting for me, I suck it up, put on the big girl panties, and do what I have to do.
Gotta do it.
And I'm done with it. And that's what it is. It's not just about us.
Yes.
It's a lifestyle. It's a movement. It's about the people. And we have to come out of ourselves and know it's bigger than us. It's bigger than us. We just play a part. And if we all just stay in our lane and I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm expecting you to do what you need to do. And as we do that, we're going to win this war. We're going to win this war. We may not win every battle, but we're going to win this war. If we stay the course, if we stay focused, don't allow all these distractions. But talk about all this. I don't care about all the Black Lives Matter on the street. I want to know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Why is that woman's Breonna Taylor? Why are those cops still not arrested? That's the thing that I want to. Don't get so happy. Well, I don't care about that. That's not important. What's important? What are we doing? Why are those cops all this time? They're not arrested.
Yeah, structure.
So we can't lose focus on what we started.
That's right.
We have to stay with the blinders on and stay focused on what we're doing. We have all these other things, but we have one focus. One of my favorite movies is Drumline. One band, one sound. Keep it together and don't lose focus.
Amen. Beautiful.
Amen. That's a great way to end. And again, this is Kamau Austin, publisher of Scoop Publications, and your host for the Scoop on Black News video program. And we thank everyone for tuning in, and we hope to see you soon in another program. Thank you. Thank you all for.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Blessings. Blessings.